at me with the same stuff all the time. I'm tired.
But what I'm not understanding is why can't you help me?
Because I'm tired of helping. You guys are, oh my God, you're grown.
Okay, but I'm still your daughter.
You are still my daughter, but that doesn't mean I have to constantly take care of you.
This doesn't make any sense, and it's just unfair to me because all the rest of my friends and my cousins, all their parents are helping them.
I'm not all the rest of your friends' mamas. I'm your mama.
But that's not fair. They get to relax and actually focus on school,
okay,
and I have to work.
You're gonna have to. You know what? This is where you need to prioritize your time. You're gonna have to set a better schedule.
My time?
Yes, your time.
What time do I have? I work all the time. Okay, if I'm not at school, I'm at work. If not at work, I'm at school.
I raised 2 kids by myself. Your dad didn't help me with nothing.
I'm not you,
by
though.
myself.
I'm not you.
You don't have to be me. But I did it. Ain't nobody helped me with nothing.
But why do I have to struggle, though? If you can help me, why do I have to struggle? None of my friends have to struggle. They don't have to worry about working.
All right. So none of her friends has to struggle. She's the only person out there, you know, for a fact, give it a few years, she'll probably get into a bunch of student loan debt. Not that I didn't earn my own way into debt. Okay. She'll get herself into a bunch of student loan debt. Then she's going to realize she can't pay it off. Then she'll be making a future TikTok video talking about how she hates working the 9 to 5 in this life, which just wasn't meant for her to have to work this hard. Somehow or another, mother has perhaps given her too much entitlement, because I would never consider sitting in front of my parents at that age or at any age, but we'll take it at the age she's at. Okay. She's at, and saying, well, how come I got to work so hard? You know, Susie down the street don't have to work that hard. Your life and your budget is not based about the people down the street, because you see, if you believe in that, then you're going to become the future broke Joneses, because the Joneses down the street have the new $5,000 washer and dryer machine that walks and folds clothes all by itself, and you don't have that. This young lady is leading the life of the Joneses. She is in perfect mental state of mind and thought to get herself into a whole lot of debt that she cannot afford. Then it's going to be, well, how come these people, you know, mark my words, she'll be the type that's married, says to her husband who's working 70 hours a week, well, you know, the Joneses down the street, they go on vacation every 6 months. How come we're relegated to every other year? See, and sitting there and blaming your parents. But again, as I've said in previous videos, I really believe you should let your kids know by 10th, 11th grade at the absolute latest whether or not there is any intention to pay for college, because this allows the child time after they hit the age of 16 to start working and to still be under your care while they are working and while they're learning, you know, to adapt to bosses and hours and routines and all of that. And I think that's important. So stand there in front of her mom, basically berating her mom about why she has to work so hard. That tells me that mom perhaps gave her a little too much entitlement. And now she gets to live the working stiff adult life.
This is probably an unpopular opinion, but my husband and I do not pay for our kids' college. We have just decided that, and we're educated, that they got to have some skin in the game. We were always told save for retirement, not college, because they can take loans out. And I feel like I had to take a loan out. My husband had to take loans out. And it made me push harder and show up more, because I remember my dad saying, if you don't go to class, that's like handing him, at that time, a couple $100 and walking out. So I feel like they have skin in the game to work hard in school, but also work hard to earn that money and give them that responsibility that we're here to catch them if they fall, but that they have skin in the game to go after what they want.
There's nothing wrong, in my opinion, with students having skin in the game. I had to have skin in the game. As you know, I started working at 14. That was my mother's insistence. We all had to get Social Security numbers and work one summer in the bean field. And this was not torture, you guys. Okay. It's not like she sent us out there screaming and kicking. Not that we really had a choice. So there was no screaming and kicking allowed, but you know, we did it. And after we did it, it was like a 5-6 week pick during the summer. Okay. We weren't there the entire summer with absolutely nothing to do. I mean, with absolutely no break time. We were done by 2 o'clock in the morning or is it 2 o'clock in the afternoon? Excuse me, because the bean pick and started during the cool hours. So we were out on the farms at 7 a.m. She picked us up at 2 after lunch. We did that first summer. And then we did work study, all of that stuff. We always had skin in the game. We always had it. And that first gal, okay, the one sitting there berating her mother basically and filming it right there. I'd practically disown you, maybe not literally, but it would tell me that I'd done something wrong and we needed to have a heart-to-heart talk as to why you think you're so entitled. So I don't think there's anything wrong with students having skin in the game. I really genuinely believe if you are upfront with your child about what they're going to get for college before they graduate from high school, at least a couple years before, and then help them map out how they're going to earn some money. And I believe this regardless of a parent's financial circumstance. Just because parents have a lot of money does not obligate the parent to pay everything for the child. It does not obligate them. In fact, if I had a lot of money, yes, I would definitely want to help my child. But again, I'd make sure they had skin in the game and I would want to guide them. Money can't replace, growing value, growing, discipline. Money can't replace that. So if you just hand your kid money, okay, here you go. And then your kid walks off thinking college is a 4-year fun farm, and then they get out of college, they've learned squat. It's not about how much money it's not about how much money the parents make. It's how the parents guide. That to me is the more valuable lesson. It's the guidance that parents provide their child, regardless of how much money the parents make. College education by your parents is a gift. My parents helped pay for it, but I also did work study and I worked for 2 years in high school and we saved that money. So everybody was pitching in.
Now, this might be a little controversial, but as a trustee of a 7-figure estate, I've already told the beneficiaries, if you come to me wanting to go to college, that's absolutely fine. But if you're telling me you want to do a liberal arts or communication degree, I will not fund your education. You're not about to waste 6 figures of this estate's money on a BS degree like liberal arts or communication. Now, if you come to me saying, hey, you want to go to trade school, and I know 4 or 5 years you'll be making 6 figures, I will fully fund and fully support that mission, because there's a lot of parents and guardians that are in debt right now because they believed in their children and they funded a program that they're not either doing with or makes absolutely no money.
Girl said already.
Absolutely.
You and your
Hold on.
sister.
I absolutely agree with the trustee 100%. If you're not in something that's going to make money, you don't need to be spending, they don't need to be spending that parents or whoever the relative is that left the money. I'm going to link at the end the student loan video I did yesterday. And I will link it right here at the end after the Business Insider article. And it's about a mom who helped get her children into into student loan debt to the tune that's going to take them 25 to 30 years to pay it off. And this was helped by the mother. I'll link that at the end. The title of this Business Insider article is When Retirement is 19 Credit Cards and $40,000 in Debt Away. For those not looking at the screen, we are looking at a photo of the 73-year-old subject. She is standing in front of her somewhat run-down trailer. The author is Ayelet Sheffy for Business Insider, published February 15th, 2026. A link to the article will be in the description box. Sitting outside every morning with a fresh cup of coffee or reading a book in the front yard at night, it's the simple pleasures that matter to Susan Cannon. Lately, sky-high interest rates on the 73-year-old's credit cards have cast a dark shadow. I can't get the balance down because I am still having to use credit cards at the end of the month to get groceries and gas. Cannon, who lives in a mobile home in rural Texas, told Business Insider, I pay my bills, but because of the interest rates, it keeps going up. I feel like I'm being gouged. Cannon has $39,440 in credit card debt, spread across 19 cards, with varying interest rates from 12 to 35%. The issue began to spiral when the pandemic hit. She lost her part-time job as a mystery shopper, which she had held since retiring from her full-time job as a medical coder in 2015. Since then, she has relied on minimal COVID relief funds, her Social Security, and her pension. Credit cards have helped her stay afloat, using them for gas, groceries, and home repairs, while she paid at least $25 more than the minimum monthly payment. The interest rates prevented her from making a dent in her balance. All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop here. And really quickly, as I read these articles, I only focus on the person. I don't read the parts where they talk about the policies and politics and all of that stuff. Again, this will be linked inside the description box. So this poor woman at 73 years old, $40,000 in credit cards across 19 cards with interest rates up to 35%. Now, here's what kind of struck me as first. Okay. Yeah, the credit cards are bad, granted, and the 35% interest rate tells you she's definitely a high risk borrower, because people with really good borrowing and payment back history and all of that, high credit scores and all that, I would fall in that category. I get offers for 0%, like nobody's business, and I just throw them away. So she has a 35% interest rate, which tells you she's clearly a high risk borrower. But there's something that I think, in my opinion, that is even more important than, okay, so she was a mystery shopper, after, I guess, before the pandemic hit. It was the fact that they said that she's retired. Okay. She says here, they say that she has a pension, but they don't tell you what the pension is. My suspicion is that the pension clearly is not very much. People can have a pension, and depending upon how long you worked, your pension can be, $50, $200, or it could be a full year, 30-year teacher pension, which is what, I will have in 10 years. Okay. Knock on wood, health and everything else stays up. I never take anything for granted, but I'm starting my 21st year in the school district here in Florida. And so that's obviously going to be a bigger pension. I am thinking that she was not financially ready to retire. This $40,000 in credit cards. Yes, the pandemic hit a lot of people, and she says she was a mystery shopper, which, again, low skill job, typically the type of job you might find perusing on the internet, looking for something simple to do that doesn't take a lot of work. But it's the fact here that she says, she's retired, and of course the interest rates are really high. But this was before the pandemic. She was retired before the pandemic, took on this little mystery shopper job. I can't believe that a little mystery shopper job for someone who is fully funded to be able to retire. I'm not saying retire rich. I'm not going to retire rich, but I intend to retire fully funded. Okay. So for someone who is fully funded for retirement, it is hard for me to believe that a little mystery shopper job could be enough to completely wipe you out. If that is the case, then it is, as I suspect, her pension is not really worth anything. She's probably looking at 1,000 or so. I'm going to guess. All right. I'm going to guess her Social Security payments are probably under $1,500 a month. I'm just taking an educated, logical guess. So that as something as simple as a pandemic, and remember, the pandemic was 2021. So technically she was already retired, or she should have been nearing retirement age. In other words, the way I'm seeing these numbers, she was in no position to retire. And you have to remember, guys, retirement isn't an age. It's about a number. It's, can you financially afford to retire? You got 30-year-olds that can retire. Congratulations to them, by the way. Okay. No hate or jealousy. All right. And then you have 80-year-olds who can't. I'll reserve the congratulations on that one. Okay. So she can't blame all of this, just the pandemic hit, and that was the end of my finances. If she was retirement age, and she would have been, because she's 73. So if I back it up, she would have been retirement age. So I'm thinking she was retiring on a wing and a prayer. And you can't do that. You have to retire based on the numbers. All right, moving on, if I didn't totally lose myself. Okay, the only way she believes she can pay off her balance is through lower interest rates. Now, again, we get into the politics and all that stuff. I don't read all that. Yeah, lower interest rate, but here's the problem. At 35% interest, she's clearly high risk and of her age. Not too many creditors are going to be receptive to lowering her interest rate. And if her trailer is paid off, people could say, well, she could take a HELOC out. But again, this is, all due respect, it is her home, and I try to go more gentle on, elderly in the retirement, as you guys know. Okay. I don't want to see her put up anything in her trailer as a HELOC, because if she messes that up, then she's on the street. In her case, I would file bankruptcy. I would take it and I would file bankruptcy. That's what I would do if I were her for $40,000 at the age of 73. Sometimes there just comes a point where you have to say, I messed up. So assuming this is not credit card debt. All right. All right, here we go. Wages aren't growing as quickly as the cost of living. People are struggling to get by, Rust says. He's a financial advisor. They use their credit card when they're having a tough time making ends meet and repeat it across tens of millions of households. The result is a surge in credit card debt. It is true that during the pandemic, credit card debt went up. Now, I'll tell you, in my case, financially, I used the pandemic when they halted the student loan, when I think it was Trump, okay? And they had the what is it, the checks that they get, the stimulus checks that they gave out. I held onto that money like gold and used it to pay off my mortgage faster. Okay, that's what I did. And so I was able to pay it off in 3 years instead of the 7 years that I had planned. And of course, that was with some infusion of my late parents' money as well. It was a combination of the two. There she is again. She spent her life to work to pay her bills, but she couldn't prepare for the pandemic and the financial and emotional toll it would take. And she doesn't see an end in sight unless interest rates go down. Am I going to keep working like this, or am I going to be able to sit down and at least just sit outside and read a book in the evening? She said, saying that she lives minimally, doesn't buy new clothes, has no TV subscriptions, and keeps just a prepaid phone. I don't know what more I can do. Right. Again, I want to do this very respectfully because I respect our elders. She says here, she spent her life working to pay bills, but she couldn't prepare for the pandemic and the emotional toll it would take. And I'm assuming they're also talking about financial. So let's look at the financial end, because that's what I want to focus on. She wasn't prepared to retire with or without the pandemic. She just wasn't. The numbers weren't there. And it is something that I really am pushing to do now that I'm going to be 59 in July. I insist something goes into retirement to supplement my teacher income, my Social Security, and then, of course, I will have my private annuity, which my goal is to have a few $100,000 in that as well. And all three pay for life. And I'll tell you something else to think about. The one thing I like about the pension, the annuity, and the Social Security, you can't get scammed out of the whole thing at one time. I'm just a little side note. You know, we hear about seniors get scammed to their entire 401k, whatever. Well, the pension and Social Security, especially, you can't, I can't call up when I'm 80 years old and tell the pension people to change it. That's not the way it works. And it's because your retirement is literally planned on what program you chose during your career. You can't just go bouncing back and forth. So I like that a lot. But she really can't blame this on the pandemic. The pandemic did put people financially behind, and all my heartfelt love and respect to people who really suffered financially from it. But in her case, she would have been clearly in her 60s at this point, mid to late 60s, right? Thinking about when the pandemic was. She should have already had that financial, that financial rock to stand on. It should have already been solid. Again, just like the beginning of the article, her mystery shopper job caused her to lose everything. There's just something not right there financially. We can blame the pandemic for certain things. And I think especially young people could definitely blame the pandemic for some things. People just getting out of college, people just starting their career, and then this pandemic hits. But the people who are older should, in an ideal world, would have been more financially stable to deal through the pandemic. She says it's all going towards interest. Cannon started signing up for credit cards about 15 years ago, believing that paying off more cards would boost her credit score. Her strategy worked for a while. She said that she would apply for a credit card, pay off the balance, set it aside, and her score would go up. Well, the cards with the highest interest rates were store cards that offer discount on certain purchases. Cannon said she made sure to use them sparingly. She did not anticipate losing a third of her income once the pandemic hit. Credit cards turned from a way to boost her credit score to a means of survival. So in other words, she tried to play a credit card game and thought, hey, you know what? I can put something on a store card. Let's get real here. Store cards, guys, You have no need for a store card. All you need is a major Visa, MasterCard. That's it. Everything you can do with one major Visa, MasterCard. You don't need private store cards for any reason. And those are where your interest rates are typically 25, 30, 35%. You don't need a store card. You truly don't. Yeah, they say they give you perks. You know what? Most credit cards nowadays, you get anywhere from 1 to 5% cash back on what you buy. So to me, there is no need for a store card. But she was trying to do the manipulation game. And again, as you know, I went bankrupt in my early 20s. I kind of understand what she was trying to do. She told herself that she was disciplined enough that this would just be a little game to get up her credit score. She'd buy something that she didn't really need, that wasn't, a necessity. Just saying. All right. I guarantee it to you. She wasn't putting food, milk, eggs, bread, water on that stuff. That's not what she was, for the most part, buying with it. I guarantee it to you. Because the minute somebody says to me store card, I think of fun store retailing shop therapy type cards. I'm not thinking of, okay, we're going to go to Walmart to go buy food. You see? So I'm just using my experience to tell you where I think her head was at. And the game didn't work because she wasn't as disciplined with cards as she thought. Your credit score will go up naturally on its own. You don't need to sit and do the credit card manipulation game. You really don't. With the cold weather, remember she's in a rural part of Texas. My electric bill was $200. Again, this was February 2026. I'm expecting to get hit with about a $300 bill, I believe, for next month, Cannon said. Maintaining her home and land has added to her debt. Still, many people use credit cards for reasons beyond making ends meet. I've always tried to put some in savings, but it's gotten to where it's all going towards interest, Cannon said. I just cannot get ahead. She tried to contact some of her banks to lower her interest rate to no avail. Cannon most recently received a denial letter in the mail from Citibank, where she has a 28% credit card interest, which said its decision was based in whole or in part on information from her credit reporting agency. Remember what I told you guys, 35% up there, that you show you are high risk. Banks are not going to look at you. So at least I feel like I'm giving you some accurate information there. Quote, based on your credit score, your current APR is equal to or lower than the APR we offer consumers with the same credit score who apply for the same or similar credit card product today, the letter said. Scrolling down. Those cards benefit from having a consumer who's captive to using that card in that store to get that deal, Russ said. And so perhaps it's not surprising that interest rates are frequently higher as a result. Well, let me, again, drawing on my experience of being a shopaholic and having, a bankruptcy on credit cards in my 20s. The part that she says here, the credit cards benefit from having a consumer who's captive to using that card in store to get that deal. Absolutely. How many stupid free plastic water bottles do we need? How many stupid free t-shirts? Don't forget the umbrella you get too that says Citibank or Walmart or whatever on the side that they had made in China for 10 cents. And then they get you to apply for a card. No, they don't get you. You allow yourself to apply for a card. We must take ownership. We allow ourselves to get applied for a card. You might say, why don't they just give them a lower rate and then they don't need the marketing because people will come for the lower rate, but people don't come for the lower rate. They respond to the marketing. Dreschler, one of the authors, told Business Insider, and that is absolutely true. If Citibank, let's make it even more personal. Let's talk about a college campus. College campus says, hey, you know what? We're going to give you 2% APR for 2 years. Everybody's going to walk by. If a college campus says, hey, we're giving out free t-shirts with your mascot on it, everybody's around the table, small, medium, large, or extra large. So yeah, consumers want free. We want free stuff. And I'm using the nice word. We want free stuff. Okay. That you got to keep in mind, these credit card companies have had years and years and years, decades of mind research on how we think and what motivates us to buy, to apply, to get into debt, and then pay all of our money towards the credit card interest. But in the end of it all, we must take personal ownership and responsibility. We cannot lay it at the feet of the pandemic. We cannot lay it at the feet of the store, of the credit card company. We must own it if we are going to change it, because without us owning it, we cannot change our mindset. Therefore, we cannot improve ourselves personally. Cannon ensures she makes at least the minimum monthly payment on all her cards so she doesn't fall too far behind. She uses her Social Security checks to cover about half her bills. And at the end of each month, she finds herself transferring some money from her savings account into her checking account to cover the remainder of her expenses, leaving her with just enough to pay slightly more than those minimum credit card payments, but nothing extra. I have tried to keep up with these credit cards and I still am, Cannon said. I feel like a fool, but at the same time, I wouldn't be in this situation if they hadn't raised those interest rates. With all due respect, she would have still been in the same situation because, with all due respect, again, the pandemic was about 10 years ago. She should have been financially ready or getting ready to retire. See, this again, personal accountability. We have to take it. It was not the credit card debt that did her in. It was decisions she made 30 years ago, 20 years ago that did her in. See, that's where the ownership belongs. All right, let me scroll on down, Relying on credit cards is expensive, but it's important not to forget that they still come with protections, Russ said. They still cost less than a payday lender. It's still easier to resolve a problem with your credit card company than with a buy now, pay it later company. That is true, but I don't think it's worth the benefits. I never thought I would be in this position, Cannon said. I'm just surviving. And it's because, family, I don't want you to just be surviving. That's why this channel exists.
Grow a set already. You and your sister coming at me with the same stuff all the time. I'm tired.
But what I'm not understanding is why can't you help me?
Because I'm tired of helping. You guys are, oh my God, you're grown.
Okay, but I'm still your daughter.
You are still my daughter, but that doesn't mean I have to constantly take care of you.
This doesn't make any sense, and it's just unfair to me because all the rest of my friends and my cousins, all their parents are helping them.
I'm not all the rest of your friends' mamas. I'm your mama.
But that's not fair. They get to relax and I could actually focus on school.
Okay,
and I have to work.
You're going to have to, you know what? This is where you need to prioritize your time. You're going to have to set a better schedule.
My time?
Yes, your time.
What time do I have? I work all the time. Okay, if I'm not at school, I'm at work. If not at work, I'm at school.
I raised 2 kids by myself. Your dad didn't help me with nothing.
I'm not
did that
you,
by
though.
myself.
I'm not you.
You don't have to be me. But I did it. Ain't nobody helped me with nothing.
But why do I have to struggle, though? If you can help me, why do I have to struggle? None of my friends have to struggle. They don't have to worry about working.
I've been talking about my student loans a lot, but yesterday I woke up to an email saying that my monthly payment for my student loans are not doubling, but they are tripling every month. So my minimum payment just went up $1,000 a month. Paying an extra $1,000 every month was not on my bingo card, and now I'm freaking out because wasn't expecting to have extra bills. I actually just cut my hours in the ER. I was working 40 hours a week and then I cut down to 32 hours. So taking a pay cut and now I have an extra bill. The math ain't mathing. It's not a good combo. So gotta figure out what I'm doing with that situation. Been considering moving home. I'm in Boston, Massachusetts right now, and Boston is so expensive. So we've been considering moving back in with my parents who live in Savannah, Georgia. And honestly, that idea is sounding better and better as the days go by. That way we'll at least save money on rent. Gotta love your 20s, right?
This is probably an unpopular opinion, but my husband and I do not pay for our kids' college. We have just decided that, and we're educated, that they gotta have some skin in the game. We were always told save for retirement, not college, because they can take loans out. And I feel like I had to take a loan out, my husband had to take loans out, and it made me push harder and show up more, because I remember my dad saying, if you don't go to class, that's like handing him, at that time, a couple $100 and walking out. So I feel like they have skin in the game to work hard in school, but also work hard to earn that money and give them that responsibility that we're here to catch them if they fall, but that they have skin in the game to go after what they want.
Now, this might be a little controversial, but as a trustee of a 7-figure estate, I've already told the beneficiaries, If you come to me wanting to go to college, that's absolutely fine. But if you're telling me you want to do a liberal arts or communication degree, I will not fund your education. You're not about to waste 6 figures of this estate's money on a BS degree.